All right, good morning, everyone. Today in Google Classroom, you're going to find an assignment that will ask you to go through quickly this lecture. Additionally, you're going to be looking at the lyrics and a quick video song of The Wheels on the Bus, telling the story and the theory of revolution by Crane Brinton, a theorist, a political scientist. And then additionally, you are going to actually complete slide number 8 of your interactive notebook. Slide number 8 is going to ask that you drag and drop these from the right-hand side over to your slide. Right, you'll see that there's 1 through 7 sort of causes of a revolution. This is again according to Crane Brinton's Causes of Revolution, which The Wheels on the Bus will kind of tell you about. Right, then your exit slip will be based on Crane Brinton's theory. Right, your revolution, anytime there's a revolution, Crane Brinton would suggest that it begins with what? Right, so figure it out. What would a revolution begin with? You will then type it right there in this box, right? When you are finished with today's assignment, you are going to take a screenshot of slide, 8, right? And you will then submit a screenshot of slide 8. Right, so let's get down to business. We are looking at the recipe for a revolution. So this is the idea that revolutions seem to have a pattern, or that they have things in common. When we talk about a revolution, right, it is a fundamental and relatively sudden change in political power, which occurs when the population revolts against the government. Right? Some examples of this would obviously be like the American Revolution, where the colonists are going to rebel against the British government. The Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution is really cool. It's very interesting. It's actually a successful African slave revolution against the French control of their island, or their part of the island. The Communist Revolution in China, 1949, this guy, Mao Zedong, is going to lead communists in taking over the nationalist Chinese government, and will actually force them out of power. The Iranian Revolution, 1979, again, this is actually led by Ayatollah Khomeini, and you have a really kind of radical Islamist group that comes in and takes over a more moderate secular government. Right? So these are major shifts in the way in which people are governed. So what causes people to do this, right? Well, this is all based on the theory of Crane Brinton. Crane Brinton just observes that a lot of these revolutions have something in common, and they all share some common causes. At this point, you're going to want to look at the lyrics on the Wheels on the Bus handout, and then you'll also have a video of us singing it for you, and so you'll see that there are some hand motions that can help you remember the causes. All right, of course, over here we have Robespierre actually driving the bus, right? So we'll talk more about him later. The causes of the revolution, all right? So this is not specifically the French Revolution, although the French Revolution fits. It also fits for later the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. It somewhat fits the American Revolution as well. But here's what Crane Brinton says. He says, first of all, the first kind of cause, right, is that people are upset about lost liberty. Lost liberty meaning that they've lost some sort of freedoms, freedom of speech, freedom of press, something of that nature. All right, then we have people have hope, right, but they feel like they have to accept less. So they have some hope in the government, but they feel as though like there's nothing they can do about it, right, and so they're just accepting that their liberties have been taken from them. Number 3, you have social classes that become more rigid and hostile to one another, and we see this with the 3 estates that we looked at yesterday. The old order, or we also call it the ancient regime. Remember that this system had been around since the days of the Middle Ages, so for about 700 years, those social classes just become really entrenched, right? They get a little bit more hostile towards one another, especially the third estate is starting to feel the strain of carrying the burden, right, of taxes and labor and all of that sort of stuff, whereas the first and second estate are not really sharing those responsibilities. So you start to see that hostility. Number 4, scholars start to give up on the way that society operates. Typically, scholars are your educated folks, and at this point, they start to give up on the way that the government is working, and they start to look for other solutions. And this works out really well for the French Revolution because it follows the Enlightenment. So a lot of these great thinkers in society start looking at Enlightenment ideas like John Locke's ideas, or Jean-Jacques Rousseau's ideas, or Montesquieu's ideas, the ideas that freedom should be protected, liberty should be protected, The government should maybe rule on behalf of the people. The will of the people actually gives the government permission to rule over them. And then things like checks and balances from Montesquieu. All right, number 5, the government does not respond to the people. All right, so the people ask the government to change. The government does not change. And at that point, some of the actual people within the government join the opposition, where they see like the writing on the walls, they see that change is needed, and they will actually switch sides. Number 6, the government is unable to get enough support from any group to save itself, right? So this is when things start to get really kind of ugly. The government is unable to get maybe one of the social classes to kind of side with him. Maybe the government is unable to get the scholars to side with him. And because of this, they don't have enough support, and it looks like the popular opinion is that they need to change. Number 7, the final one, the government is overspending and is either going bankrupt or taxing too much, right? This is kind of like the final blow. And in the French Revolution, we'll certainly see that the government is overspending. They've been overspending for quite some time. They are deeply, deeply in debt. They're operating at a deficit, which means you're spending money that you don't have, which means you're borrowing money from other countries. And then you're passing on that burden to taxing the people. And if you remember in the French Revolution, they're not taxing everyone equally. All right, so these are the causes of the revolution. On your notebook paper, notebook page, you are going to now drag and drop them into the notebook page in the correct order. Right, so what's the deal with the French Revolution? So what are their causes, right? Well, one of the most important causes that we can see pretty clearly is social inequality. These are those social classes showing hostility towards one another. We looked at this yesterday, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but this is the idea of the old order, or the ancient regime. It's that social and political structure that created these inequalities in French society. Of course, who's at the top? Louis XVI, his wife, Marie Antoinette. Of course, she is, we've already talked about, they call her Madame Deficit, which means, right, she's spending all of their money. She is incredibly unpopular anyways because, of course, she is from Austria. She's not actually French. She was married to Louis in just a political marriage, a way to keep the peace between Austria and France. And because he doesn't really pay attention to her, she gets bored and starts spending a lot of money. She has fancy clothes, lavish parties, crazy wigs, right, that type of thing. The king also is kind of symbol of incompetence, right? He lives at Versailles, but he's very shy, he's very undecisive, and people describe him kind of as a schlub, right? So not like a super powerful dude. And again, we see the problem of ineffective leadership. We also see that they're spending money, right? The social class system, this hostility that you start to see is that the third estate, these folks down here, the bourgeoisie, the peasant farmers and the urban workers are really carrying. Right, so here's this guy worker down here who looks like he's kind of saddled, right? He has a bridle, he has, cuffs around his, shackles around his arms, his feet, right, and his ankles, and he is carrying on top of him, right, the king, right, priests, and then additionally nobles, right? So this is, again, the idea that all of these people, this third estate, the 96 to 97% of the population is carrying everybody else, right? And they are taking advantage of them. You have privileges that are only afforded to the first estate and the second estate, and you have some serious problems, like they don't pay taxes. The Estates General is only going to heighten this. We did a little simulation yesterday where you guys saw that in the Estates General, it was exceptionally unfair to the third estate because each estate voted by order, which means they each received one vote. And when they each receive one vote, right, they are constantly, the third estate will actually be outvoted by the first and second estate, voting together to keep their privileges, right? Additionally, another cause, remember, okay, this is when scholars lose hope on society. This would be an example of this, these Enlightenment ideas. Remember, they learned about these new thinkers, as I mentioned already. They also knew that England had already become a constitutional monarchy, so they kept their king, but the king's power was limited by Parliament, which is a legislative group, right? So the king did not have absolute power in England, and the French know this, and they start thinking that maybe this is a solution. They also had just finished, 12 years prior to this, had just finished helping the American colonists overthrow the British rule and help them kind of create a new government. And so because of this, France, a lot of French leaders like Lafayette, is going to come back from America with these ideas of revolution and with these ideas that American thinkers like Jefferson, for example, or even Benjamin Franklin, what they were thinking about creating a limited government. All right, and then lastly, this is that final blow, as I mentioned, is financial crisis. They are deep in debt, right? They are operating at a deficit, so they are spending money that they don't have. Some of this is from a lot of wars that they actually had prior to this. For example, the French and Indian War, where the French are battling the British. The American Revolution, quite frankly, is like really devastating for the French. They lend their support to the American colonists really for no other reason than just to stick it to Britain and try to have some sort of supremacy over Great Britain. The monarchy is, of course, spending money. Here she is with her wig maker, right? Then you have natural disasters that are going to ruin the harvest, and when the harvest is ruined, right, there's less wheat. And when there's less wheat, there's less bread. And when there's less bread, the bread prices rise. And when 97% of your population is relying on bread to survive, you have serious issues. Then on top of that, of course, they borrowed money for all of these things, and they're having to pay back, right, that money, but they're also having to pay it back with interest. And the interest that they are paying is almost as much as what they are actually paying back that they originally borrowed. All right, so these are the types of things that are going to cause, right, the French Revolution. And it's not just one thing. It's not just weak leaders. It's not just social classes. It's not just a financial crisis, right? Countries and governments are able to survive those things alone. But when you go back and you put them all together, right, then you have some problems. All right, so what I would like for you to do is now go to this page. Go ahead and drag and drop these over, as I mentioned. Right, take a look at the lyrics of the reading on the bus so that you can kind of tell, right, what the stages or what the causes of revolution are, and then go ahead and fill out this exit slip, take a screenshot, and turn it in. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for paying attention to the lecture. Another maybe piece of advice, check out the study guide, see what you can fill out so far. I think you'll find that there's quite a bit of information you can go ahead and start to accumulate. All right, have a great day, and email if you have questions.